Live. Good evening. This is the Nifty Alpha. I'm Pio. I'm here with my co-host Nifty Nick. And in today's episode, we're actually going to be doing an interview with the founder of Deadfellaz, Betty. So Deadfellaz is a 10,000 piece profile picture NFT collection that can be purchased on OpenSea, built on the Ethereum blockchain. And we're really excited to have Betty on today. Welcome, Betty. How are you?
Hey, thank you for having me on. I'm great. Thank you. How are you?
Doing very well, thank you. Glad to get a chance to connect, and to chat with you. One thing that I was going to say that I wouldn't be surprised if you didn't know is that I've actually been in Deadfellaz, the project, since point 0.1 ETH. So I'm a long time holder.
Wow.
Yeah, I got one dead fella. And yeah, I mean, I always identified with the project. I thought that the art style was very, very cool. And yeah, I was curious, when Nick let me know that we were going to be speaking with you, to hear about how you got into like this blockchain NFT space, what the sort of origin story is for Betty on that front. And then we could kind of, expand from there.
Awesome. Yeah. So, um, me and my husband, Psych is the artist,
Yep.
on the project. We worked together on this. He basically was, um, indoctrinated, for want of a better word, to NFTs, early in the year, in about January, from his art collective Depthcore. They were all saying, you need to check out this NFT thing. It's amazing. And he told me about it, and immediately it was like fireworks for me. It was, when you hear of something and something just clicks, and you're like, wow, that is amazing. Like, the concept of NFTs immediately just excited me. Um, so yeah, he was like all involved. I was lurking for a really long time. I was nervous to engage. Um, so I was just, yeah, lurking and learning and absorbing everything, getting to know everyone and what was happening. And he started being approached to do art on other people's projects. And we've worked in creative production at a corporate level for some of the biggest brands in the world for the last, how many years now? Just over 10 years. And I was like, we do this anyway. Like, let's just apply our skills to NFTs. And we did. The idea for Deadfellaz came immediately. We're horror fans, and we were just recently, before we had the discussion, speaking about like the social phenomenon of zombies in pop culture, and how it's just kind of transcended through so many years since the inception of them, back with George Romero. So yeah, we were talking about that. There were a lot of things that I wanted to encapsulate in a project that I hadn't seen, like the gender inclusivity and the moving away from gender stereotypes. I've seen like a lot of women in projects. The typically female traits were really just borderline offensive stereotypes. So I wanted people of any gender to kind of be able to see themselves in a project. So we intentionally chose gender neutral traits. So none of the traits are gendered. And yeah, there's a few things I wanted to bring to the project. Pop culture and movies and TV shows, and street style and fashion and all of those things. There's a lot of cool references that people sometimes pick up on, and they'll message me like, is this a nod to that? And that's really fun. So yeah, we've just been working on it ever since. It's really amazing. I'm having the best time. And I love the community that's grown around it. So yeah, I'm glad to hear that you're in. That's cool.
Been in.
Amazing. Amazing. Yeah, fun. Is this
I've
your
been
dead fella that you're showing me right now?
No, we could pull mine up though. Mine has a bucket hat, which when I bought it, I don't think there wasn't a premium priced in, but I think bucket hats are a little bit in demand these days. I don't know. You'd know better than me.
I actually love bucket hats, and I love the flow of what's in demand and what's not. Like, every trait seems to have its moment, which is really fun. Um, Furs are always popular though, and tattoos.
so I definitely bought some also, but I like bought, sold, bought, sold. We do a lot of flipping, but Deadfellaz has been kind of one of the top projects this year, I would say, in terms of really having grown a successful community and really having a dedicated following. I have a friend who's I don't know if he's like working with you guys officially, Dan Petty, who was a web design friend. And it seems like you guys have attracted a large number of people from the web design community. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, so I mean, we have a background in design, so it's how we work. I think the identifying with artists and designers and appreciating where that comes from is just who we are. Yes, we do work with Dan Petty. He's designing our website, and he does a lot of work for us, and he's just an amazing person. I'm really, really grateful that we've attracted all of these people, because it's honestly such a pleasure to work with them. It sounds so cliche, but like, you spend like all of that time that I spent lurking. I really felt like I knew everyone. Obviously, nobody knew me when I first started in the space, but then when these people started to work with us, it was like, oh my god. So I still fangirl over people, over people when they message, or if I see them like, buy a Deadfella, which is really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, go ahead, Nick.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, speaking of the design, right? So, like, what attracted me to the project was, I like cartoon style artwork, and
Yeah.
I think that it's very challenging to make original artwork in that direction. A lot of times, you see a lot of stuff like kind of borrowed from other artwork, and so what drew me to Deadfellaz specifically was that it just felt really original to me. And now that I know that it was, it's your husband that's actually making the artwork, I think that's even cooler. Could you talk about his creative background and maybe as an artist what he was doing before Deadfellaz? Because I'd love to know like what kind of got the two of you to this. Again, because it is that kind of cartoony style, but still with a lot of originality, which is harder to come by in the NFT space.
Yeah, so Psych has always been a digital artist forever, since he had access to a computer, and before then a traditional artist. And his career in art has been basically creating this crazy psychedelic, wild 2D art, very, very colorful, and very, very not corporate. So he has had this separate identity, because the flow over was confusing corporate clients. So that's kind of one of the reasons why we chose to go with new identities for NFTs, mostly for the art, so as not to alienate the initial clients that we have. But yeah, so the style is, we create concepts. Like, that's what we do. We make these brands, and we create characters, and we build stories and worlds, and so it's always what we've done. And it's kind of, this has given us an opportunity to really just run with it. There's been no bounds, no creative stifling or anything. No one telling us this is what you should do or that's what you should do. The design came together so quickly. But I will release the initial the initial design. I was explaining, he's got this really amazing ability for me to just say what I see in my brain, and him to just make it. And we work really well together. And I think it's, obviously we're married and we live together and we work together, so there's that symbiosis, I guess. But it came together so quickly. And we really inspired by like 90s cartoons like Doug and Daria, and then more recent ones like Adventure Time, and really appreciate the original characters in those sorts of animations, video games and comics and all of that. So yeah, character design is just something that we're used to doing. And it I don't know, it's like it wanted to be born as a project, because it really wasn't a struggle to imagine these little characters.
I can definitely feel the Daria inspiration. That was a great cartoon, and that did not click with me when I saw this. But now you just say that, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes. Um,
Yeah.
it, I'm wondering, like, so you guys were artist, or your husband, it sounds like, was had deep experience with the art. You were articulating the vision of it.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you all to create this? And was this like a true, I mean, it's a generative project. So I'm wondering, like, how long did it take to produce all those different elements?
Well, there's over 400 traits that you see in the collection, and in building the collection, there were way more. We had to cull it down so that it made sense. we just got carried away. It was really hard to pick. There's still some traits that I would love to see in the world. So, you know, in the future, hopefully I see them on these little guys. But yeah, it took weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of solid work. It was because we have 3 children as well, all under 7. And obviously with COVID and everything, everyone's at home and everything's really crazy. And we decided to throw ourselves into this. So we really kind of put all of our usual work on the back burner and did this and trusted that it would work. So it was a case of like make or break. So we worked from 6 a.m. all the way through sometimes till 3 or 4 a.m. and then, you know, had a quick rest and started again in order to get this done. And it was really intense, but it was so much fun. Like, it was not something that felt like a labor. It was like, you know, we laughed a lot and we were listening to all kinds of different music. Music is a big inspiration as well. So certain traits were designed when we were listening to certain albums, or, you know, we had like Scott Pilgrim on in the background when we were designing some of the traits. And so it was just really fun. It was just a really fun creative exploration together. And the kids even got involved. Like, my kids all really love Deadfellaz. So yeah, it was just so fun. So much hard work, but so fun.
What was the music that you said?
All kinds of different music. We're really so Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath. We would listen to movie soundtracks, Gorillaz, Miley Cyrus. Who else? Drake. Just all kinds of different things. To pull inspiration. Oliver Tree, you can see the bowl cut. Yeah, Weezer, like a lot of 90s grunge as well. Just so many different things, because I feel that's just how we work creatively. Yeah.
That's awesome. And I mean, yeah, I think that it reflects in the art style. Again, very original, very cool inspiration for the artwork. You know, as I mentioned, I've been in the project for a while. I've seen, you know, the kind of the price action move up, you know, kind of have volatility. I also, you know, watch you guys prepare Roadmap 2.0. And at that time, there were a lot of different like second generation roadmaps that were coming to fruition. And I know that some of them underwhelmed, but I remember when yours came out, it really felt to me that it was pretty built out and a lot of work had been put into it. And there was kind of a clear, you know, entire year for 2022, at least to some capacity, planned out. And could you talk a little bit about Roadmap 2.0, like basically where Deadfellaz is at now and where Deadfellaz is going to go?
Yeah, so thank you for that. That's nice of you to say. We were very proud of the roadmap, and I think that everything we release, we want to be a fleshed out experience. So that was really why we focused on the storytelling element with the comic that's in the Medium post there. We had an amazing comic artist join our team, Leon Lee, who has done really well with a new narrative designer, India. They're working together to create basically what's in our head in real life storytelling and the lore behind Deadfellaz. And so yeah, bringing Roadmap 2.0 out with that initial story was important, and I think a lot of people found that really fun. The actual direction of where we're going, we've spent the last few months really just solidifying our foundation. I talk about sustainability a lot. It's really important to me to have that strong foundation and that community and the trust. And you know, you're almost like building a culture within projects, and so it was important to me to have that really fleshed out before we start to go into different avenues prematurely, I guess you could say. So now I feel we do have that strength there. It's time to extend ourselves into all of these different avenues. We're exploring basically everything that you can imagine media wise. We see Deadfellaz as a bit of a pop culture brand. And I want it to be completely immersive as an experience outside of a PFP. So I want you to really feel like you can interact with the world through the different avenues that we explore. So our Decentraland development, I want you to go in there and really feel like you're part of the world and you can interact with it. And yeah, music and gaming and all of these things. I know there's many promises that are made and they're so lofty, but I think that with our creative background, we have more of a firm understanding of how those things are developed and, realistic timelines and that sort of thing. So, yeah, the Roadmap 2.0 was developed with that in mind.
I'm super curious as it applies to, so you all are early NFT project, like one of the earliest NFT projects. 2021 is sort of defined by the launch of Bored Apes and then everything after that and a lot of projects. Now, obviously there were other events that occurred in 2021. I don't mean to gloss over those by any way or minimize the significance of them, but as it applies to sort of NFT collectibles, everyone's sort of making it up right now. Like we're all figuring out, what does this mean? What does this space even look like? But I'm curious as to you as an entrepreneur. A, were you involved with entrepreneurship before? B, now that you've been thrust into what's essentially running a small a business here, basically. Um, how do you think about like the sustainability of this as a business? Because what we've seen is from a lot of these projects, I think of even Bored Ape Yacht Club, they went and just took a massive cash haul, basically. So they now have, a couple $100 million that they have in their on their balance sheet, I guess, that they can go and deploy minus taxes, that is. And so like, how do you think about this in terms of a business as a whole? And uh, the second half of that would be like, how does the NFT space influence where you're going with that roadmap? Are you taking inspiration from that, or are you more just like, paving the path and you know where you're headed with this?
That's a really interesting question. So I feel like, so we are entrepreneurial. I have always worked for myself and built things, and we are both the kind of people that have brainwaves and buy 1 million URLs, and those. I'm always having ideas. This has given us an outlet, I guess, to really utilize all of the skills and the passion that we have in a way that isn't defined by someone else's vision, which is really cool. Now, moving on to that as a business, we've always run an agency, so it's something that, again, we're used to hiring teams and working with different people and all of these different things. So it's really just applying that to this in terms of having that in an NFT environment. We're very much influenced by the technology, and I'm so inspired by the way Web3 seems to be moving in a decentralized way. So I think that we can. My goal basically is to push into traditional media outlets, bringing that Web3 culture with us. So I want to, and I don't know what that looks like. Like you said, no one really knows what that looks like, but it's something that I want to explore and I want to kind of break ground on, because I think that the future is really exciting. Like, what does a decentralized TV show look like? What does a decentralized video game look like? How does it look where people are able to utilize their own IP within those spaces that are typically so blocked off? Like, that's really exciting to me. So, and Psych. So that's kind of the goal. Yeah.
I love that. I'm wondering, like, in terms of one other observation that I have, and this is something that we've been thinking about heavily. Like we've gone content and community first, followed by NFT, and a lot of the projects that we've seen today are NFT first. Basically, it comes out. I'd seen you on or heard you in a number of Twitter Spaces. It seemed like there was a huge community that sort of rallied behind you and your story.
Hmm.
But I'm wondering, like, how would you define your community today? Like, what sort of what does like Deadfellaz mean?
It would be remiss of me not to acknowledge that the community is largely made up of people that are, flipping and from a day trading background. So for me, it was important to translate all of those sorts of people that were in the space for that reason, and give them a reason to connect with the project on um, more of a social level and a personal level. And so the community, I feel, is tight knit, and it sounds so cliche, but actually kind and really care about each other. Um, I've tried to foster a community that doesn't shame people for selling. I see that, like, when you see someone selling their NFTs, there's always like FUD, towards that person in certain situations. And I think that's really garbage, because that's like a lot of what the space is. It's not what I focus on as a founder, and it's not what I should be focusing on, because it's, it's secondary, but it is really a primary reason that a lot of people get involved in these projects. So, I think that encouraging that sort of thing is good. And inclusivity is a really big deal for me. I'm really passionate about getting more women and gender diverse people involved in crypto and tech and NFTs. And the culture in a lot of projects is actually quite scary in a way. It's very intimidating. When someone says something and no one else kind of corrects them, and it's like, oh, am I even welcome in this space? Like, that's how I felt back earlier in the year before I did any of this. So I wanted to provide a space for those people. It's also really a big deal to have mods that you trust. So we've spent a really long time working with our mods. Our initial mods in our Discord were people that we had already been working together with, so we had a very deep trust for them, and they really help shape the community for what it is as well. I love it. It's like people I really enjoy hanging out with, and like I know them by their names, their Discord names, and I hope to see them in real life next year when travel is a bit more open.
You'd mentioned the agency side of things, and I'm wondering, I had seen Woody's NFT project seemed heavily like there was this overlap in communities, and I don't know everything about that. And it seemed like they were created by a design collective. Do you know anything about them? And is that something that you guys have an actual formal association with?
Yeah, so Woody's is created by Ultra DAO, who Psych is actually an Ultra DAO. So it was created by a DAO who worked together to create that project, and Psych is part of that DAO. He didn't have anything to do with the creation of the project, but we love the people involved in that. They're really amazing, and the team is great. And yeah, I really enjoy Woody's. So it was really cool to see a DAO create a project. I don't know if it's the first time that's happened, but it was very awesome to see from the inception to the launch, and to see how decisions are made and what happens now. It's really fun.
You sound right at home in the space, which is inspiring, and also your approach towards price action in the market is one that's very mature, and I think one that in general, a lot of people respect, because we see a lot of communities just focus solely on that price action, and when you just allow that to be, which is and the community allows that to be, then you can actually let the community move on and just become a community about
That's
something
it.
outside of it. But it's
Yeah.
definitely it's a great way to approach it. Pia, did you have a question that you wanted to ask?
Well, yeah, I mean, speaking of like other projects, right? Like I know that there have been collaborations between Deadfellaz and other projects, which is also something that you don't necessarily see too often in the NFT space, especially between two different PFP collections. So, can you talk about those collaborations? Will we see more of those, and what that experience was like, and maybe like what the motives were behind it, to kind of go down that road?
Yeah, so collaboration is a really big part of our ethos, and I think it's a really important part of Web3 in general. I think that the attitude of collaboration over competition um, is a perfect one, because there is space for us all. At the end of the day, we're building something, and through collaboration, you find strength and you find unity. And a lot of our community discover a new community, and it's just a really beautiful thing. I think that when other people are lifted up, then you are lifted up as well. When the tide rises, all of the boats rise with it. So I think that's a large part of my decision making there. And I really respect so many people in the space that working together is just a joy. So it's fun.
There's
Will we
something.
see more of those collaborations?
Yeah, so many more. I'll see things and I'll be like, oh my God, we have to do this. And I'll message them and they're like, yes, let's do it. It's so fun. It's like a fun part of the job. And I think the communities find joy in seeing those collaborations. So it's just a win-win for everyone.
There's something that you said earlier, which was decentralized TV shows or decentralized video games. What's the business model with that? I mean, it seems like an obvious question to ask, but like you all need to sustain yourselves after this initial launch and just secondary sales, or do you believe that secondary sales itself is something which is sufficient to sustain? And like, yeah, that would be the first thing. And then outside of that, do you view this as like an intellectual property play where you co-own that with the NFT holders, and then it's like, how do we turn that into the business? Like, how would you view that?
There's so many different things I feel that can be self-sustained. So, for example, in Decentraland, we're creating wearables and all of those sorts of things, so that that space and its development and the dev team that we have behind it um, are all powered through that, which is working really well. And that's how we're doing all of the different avenues that we're exploring. So.
Right,
Um,
what does that mean? That they're powered through what?
Well, the revenue that we make through Decentraland and through the things that we do in
Mm.
Decentraland. So if people are buying wearables or trading things that we're doing through that, or we having, ticketed events for non-holders that are super affordable, but it just means that those tickets from people that are coming to those events, we can then just funnel that straight back into the development of Decentraland and what we're doing in there. So that's kind of how we're going through these different projects that we're looking at. We're also not huge on taking a lot of profits. I know that that's like a bit of a contentious issue between different projects, and I'm not going to comment on what other people do, but like we recently bought a house, which is
We
really
will.
amazing. We recently bought a house, which is really amazing, but everything else we're just focused on building what we're doing here. So um, I think that through the value that we're creating, secondary sales just happen. Um, and like you said before, it's not something that I can focus on the price or that sort of thing. But I know that those sales translate directly from what we're doing. And so my focus is just on bringing value through my interactions and how I am in the space and who I'm interacting with and the things that we explore with Deadfellaz. And so we've got lots of very exciting things coming up. We're very discerning on who we partner with and what we do. So I'm hoping that shows in what we deliver in 2022.
I love what you said. To think that secondary sales are something that can sustain a business on an ongoing basis is just remarkable in the sense that this was not even an approach that existed before for the vast majority of people before this year. And so it's pretty insane just to observe that. You also mentioned that you're uh, creating wearables into Decentraland and that there's enough people buying wearables. So that is that an active revenue business right now?
No, that's something that we're setting up at the moment. We have an amazing 3D team that are making wearables that honestly surpass anything I've ever seen before in Decentraland, and and making really cool things. So we're working with them. Um, I can't really talk much more on that because
Okay.
we have some cool things happening. But yeah, it's what we're doing. We're constantly trying to solidify all of the directions that we have to be self-sustaining, um, so that we can really spread our wings as much as possible. Obviously, additional revenue from additional collections like Dead Friends, that's coming out in January, the companion collection. We are doing that differently to how typical companion collections have been released. So it's just going to be a new way to access the community. So they're PFP ready, the same as Deadfellaz, the originals are, and they're going to have a lot of different utility and different directions. But the revenue from that will power a lot of amazing things too. We just want to make sure that everything we deliver has value and it's not just throwing out these new NFTs, so that we can take profit, which is not my vibe.
Yeah, that definitely makes a ton of sense. Uh, I mean, it's refreshing listening to your commentary on this as it applies to just people in the space, because it's like, okay, well, she clearly has a long-term vision and a serious commitment to this, where, as you were articulating on the flip side, there's a lot of projects that show up, take all the profits and utilize it for them, or all the revenue. We shouldn't call it profit, because it's literally just revenue. Profit would be they call it profit to themselves, and then they take that money because they didn't realize they had to go and build a business. But that's just called not really. That's not a that's not building a business. That's the
Yeah.
distinction. So
I think it's kind of a case of we have this tech available, readily available now. If you're in the space and you know who to contact, you can easily get art, and you can easily get a smart contract and all of those sorts of things. But just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that not many people look beyond the launch and how much work there is and the commitment that you have to have. I'm responsible for thousands and thousands of people, and at the end of the day, what I I'm bringing art and an experience, but it's also people's investments. It's just how it is. And so being responsible for those people honestly can be crippling. I get so many messages from founders and people that have just launched, like, I had no idea this is the amount of pressure. And I think that through Psych and I running the business that we have for so many years, like, we understand that pressure and we know how to deal with it. And um, we're professional. So it's just something that I guess we've been conditioned to be able to do, but it's not for everyone. And I don't blame people for dropping the ball, I guess, after launch, because I don't think it's expected by a lot of people. It's like, it's a commitment.
And right now, in this space, there's a lot of people just willing to throw money at pretty much anything. Our audience in particular is willing to do that. We do that for fun. We make we make entertainment out of it. We often lose lots of money in the process of doing that, but it's entertaining from that standpoint, nonetheless. And so, yeah, it's definitely something that's appreciated. Pia, I think you had something about big upcoming stuff.
Yeah, big upcoming stuff. I mean, look, first, I just want to have my own comment. Like, I really appreciate what you said about how you all are not just focused on like locking in profits for yourself. I think that's kind of the biggest thing. And I know you guys just kind of drilled it in the ground, but I just want to, reemphasize is like, it's the biggest thing in the space, I think, is that founders take the majority of the money from the primary sale and really from secondary sales as well. And just like kind of, for lack of a better term, pocket it. It gets framed differently, but that's what's happening. So yeah, it sounds like you have a very keen understanding of how to actually build a business and how to deploy this capital back into the business to make it sustain and to drive value to the assets that your community is holding. So hats off to you on that. What I want to bring up is Coinbase. And I know that when that news first leaked, I don't know if it leaked early, it was like something got posted, it got deleted. But I think at this point, people kind of understand that unless I'm leaking something here, it's understood that Deadfellaz is going to be on Coinbase. I wanted to know how that kind of came about and what you think that might mean for the project.
Yeah, so that we were given permission to announce, and then the announcement needed to be more aligned. So we were asked to remove it, which is completely fine. The team is really fantastic and building something amazing. And I can't comment further on that, but I think Coinbase NFT in general for the space is going to be amazing. And I think that we focus so much on the projects that are going to be listed and that have been announced. But, realistically, there's going to be many, many, many projects on there. And I think it's fantastic. I think that we'll see the space and the culture maybe shift with the amount of users that Coinbase looks to bring. So that will be interesting. And I think that maintaining that culture should be a priority. We've seen a lot of big players enter the space recently from the corporate world, and some have done it really well and some have done it really terribly with not really any regard for what's been built or what's come before them. So, just maintaining that culture, and I think that the team over there come from this sort of world, and I think it's going to be great. I see that as a big part of mass adoption and yeah, expanding the space. So I'm really excited about it personally.
I'm wondering
Awesome.
if
Well,
you. Oh,
no,
sorry.
go ahead, Nick. Yeah,
I was
no,
gonna
you're good.
say if you were gonna give advice to a new upcoming NFT project, if they were happen to be us, what would that what would that advice be?
It would be to identify a team early on that you trust, that you have ready there to expand into, and to have a clear and attainable goal. So, our first goal when we launched was building the community, but also working immediately on the next step. You always need to be thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead at all times. And that often means thinking completely outside the box, because you cannot be looking at what other projects are doing and modeling yourself off what they're doing, because they're already 4 steps ahead and thinking that way. So you will always be behind and in the wake of what's already been built, which isn't innovative, and it isn't a reason for people to buy into your project. So what we did was, initially, as soon as we launched, we bought a 24 plot in Decentraland, and we got developers, and we started building that very quietly. And instead of hyping that up and announcing all these sorts of things, we really just focused on community building and brand building, really. So a lot of people criticize things like art, community art contests, and all of those sorts of things that we did. At the end of the day, I think that they have built our brand into something very recognizable. The amount of derivatives that were created through the art contests, and the camaraderie and the collaboration that was born from it has essentially meant that, like, you see green, it's Deadfellaz. It's like Deadfellaz green. That is a result of what we've been doing. So then you can announce all the cool things that you've been building, and it's like an awesome thing. It's not something that people are waiting for, because nobody wants to wait. There's the when crowd, and you don't want to be dealing with the when crowd.
When reveal. So, in terms of one thing I just wanted to say before, and I know Pio, there were some questions you wanted to ask to about other projects, but someone in the comments said, "Don't let the floor price crash in the first 2 weeks." And I'm like, "Look, we're not the worst utilization of capital." I will say it here first: don't buy our project. Because we're not going to invest our money in buying up more NFTs of our own, because that is the worst thing we can do with our capital. So just wanted to let you know that, Mad Perfect. We will be glad to see you on the sidelines.
Yeah. So the things that people make the mistake of is founders and mods and people directly associated with the project talking about the floor and doing things to manipulate the floor. It's so dodgy, and it shouldn't be done. So we created a liquidity pool, basically, with NFT 20 really early on, so that people could have that option. And people were really excited, like, oh, they're going to sweep the floor. They're going to sweep the floor. No, we just bought our NFTs to put into a liquidity pool for people to then utilize as, a cool resource, not anything to do with sweeping the floor.
That's a really interesting concept there. So is that for NFTX where you put that in?
NFT 20.
NFT 20.
Yeah.
And so how many did you have to buy up to put in there? And then at this point, is there just active liquidity on there?
Yeah, there is, and I can't remember how many we bought initially, to be quite honest with you. It was a long time ago now, but yeah, it was something that we committed to. It was in our roadmap, and we wanted to do, because I think it's a really cool thing to have. It's, yeah, I like it, so I wanted it. I think that's another part of the decision making process in running a project. If you want something, or you wish that something existed, that's a reason to create it, because other people are going to be wishing that it existed too.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, well, you just gave us one idea to add to our. We're not releasing a roadmap only because we don't want people beforehand. Just because we want them to buy the art, and we just don't want to make any claims. And so if you
Yeah,
yeah.
roadmaps are overrated, and I think that it's pushed on a lot of artists that don't need a roadmap. Like, you know, actual art projects that are just for the art, forcing them into this box that needs a roadmap and you need utility outside of the appreciation of the art is complete rubbish. There's different categories of project. You know, we're not all the same. We're very much focused on bringing utility through experience and that sort of thing, but I don't necessarily think that people need a roadmap to be successful.
Yep. I mean, don't get me wrong. We are very committed to our business and
I
expanding that
totally,
out. But
yeah.
I just hate making promises because it sets things up in a weird, and it also leaves a lack of flexibility for you to adjust when you suddenly realize, like, you know, what would really add value to our community is X. And when you're just getting started, um, you got limited resources. I don't care, you know, even 1 million or 2 million or however many millions of single digit millions you have, it's still not unlimited. And so
No, that's correct. And I think that another thing is, people build anticipation of what they think your vision is, and
Mhm.
the hype of that can get out of control to the point that when you do release something and it doesn't align with the vision that they had themselves, you know, you maybe didn't have any part of what they think that you're doing, there's going to be FUD. And it's not your fault, but it's also something that, you know, maybe don't make promises. Yeah, that's something that we learn as well along the way.
I love that. So you think to combat that sort of differing vision of what the people tell? I mean, we saw that with Meebits though, and Meebits, there's just been no announcement, no communicate. That maybe that's not a great example because they've just gone completely silent. But in general, it seems like as long as you're open and engaging with your community, the best way to combat that sort of FUD is just to get ahead of it and maybe just have open dialogue with people. Is that what you would suggest there?
Yeah, look, transparency and just being honest and open about what you're doing is key. If I have thoughts surrounding something that we're doing, I'm going to articulate them to the community. You know, we're in the Discord basically constantly. I think that is really important. There's a lot of projects that I don't see founders engaging with their community directly, and it's like integral to understanding them. And also, it's just really fun. But yeah, directly communicating with people through releases and Twitter Spaces and Medium articles, and just making sure that everyone's clear on what you're doing, um, and the reasons behind your decisions as well. Like, a lot people, not everyone is going to agree with you, and you're going to make people really angry, and people are not going to like you. You know, that's just how it is. Um, but many people will, and it's not your responsibility to focus on that. It's your responsibility to just continue to stay true to your vision and bring value. And yeah, transparency is key.
I absolutely love this. You're an inspiring person to speak with, and one at least I guess a genuine person to speak with, which makes it seem you know it's easy to support yeah, your project. So great job what you're doing, and keep on doing it. Pio, I think you wanted to wrap up with there are a couple other questions.
Yeah, just so you know, obviously our shows and our content and our community, it's collectors, it's traders, it's people that buy, people that sell. I'm always curious when I speak to creators of notable projects like yourself. Do you buy other projects? Have you ever, like, you know, made a sick trade, like, you know, where you bought something low and you sold it? Like, you know, what's it like on that side for you?
So I am literally the worst because I buy things and I become emotionally attached to them. So I buy lots of NFTs and I am addicted to NFTs, and I think that that's a good thing because the money that I'm making, a lot of that is siphoned right back into the community and is constantly circulated. Um, I really like finding new artists, so I'm kind of split between buying from like one of one artists and then also projects. I love like, so I recently have been reading about the psychology of collectors. It's very interesting. You should definitely look into that. But the psychology of collecting is that discovery, the joy of discovery. So I when I find a new project that immediately lights me up. It's like a joy, it's excitement. You guys know. I am terrible at flipping because I like them all too much. So I did sell one doodles, and I immediately regretted it because I did mint them. So I did make a profit, but I was like, I don't even care about this profit. I want my doodle back.
You got to get good at breaking up, man.
I can't. I just cannot. I can't. I love them too much. So I hope to get better at that. It's something that it interests me to develop as a skill. Psych is terrible at, he always wants to sell everything. He's like the paper hands of the family. So I'm always like, no, don't sell it. And then he doesn't sell it. And he's like, oh, I'm glad I didn't sell that. So yeah, it's funny. We have fun.
You all sound like my fiance and I go back and forth on this. She's the diamond hand, and I'm the I'm more of a paper hand as well, willing to get out. Or what we started doing, the balance was, I was like, let's set a price target, and if it hits that, we definitely will get out. And ironically, we still didn't. So
yeah, that's what I'm like. I'm terrible. But I also I'm like, no, I love this one. Like, I can't sell that one. It's got a bucket hat, you know, like I can't sell that one. Look at its face. So
yeah,
bad.
that is true. That having the attachment. You said the psychology of collecting. Are there any like books that you recommend reading?
No, but if you go to Google Scholar, you can search like scientific articles on you know, peer-reviewed articles on the psychology. There's lots of essays. There was one about the different sorts of collectors and the different sorts of reasons that people collect. It's very insightful. And yeah, I have a background in science, so I have a degree in biomed, and I really enjoy investigating. This was before my creative production life. Isn't it funny? We live these different lives, but so I enjoy reading that sort of thing. But it was cool. It's definitely do it. It made me think about when I was a kid, and you know, those. Did you guys have those TY Beanie Babies that were released like in the 90s at McDonald's?
Yep.
Do you remember that? The Happy Meal ones?
Actually, I don't know that I didn't have one. I think I had a copycat of one, but so no. Oh, no, I didn't have that.
Okay, so I did, and I was obsessed with them. And it's just like funny to think about the psychology of collecting, starting from these, you know, it's part of us. We're like funny little magpies, aren't we? And NFTs just give us an outlet for that.
No doubt. Yeah. Well, hey, Betty, it was an absolute pleasure. You know, anything you want to leave the audience with before we let you go?
No, it was nice to talk to you guys. I love talking about NFTs, and yeah, hit me up if you want to chat. I like talking to people in my DMs. It's pretty bad though. I get so many, but if you do want to talk, like message me. I'm definitely approachable, and yeah, I love to throw ideas around with people and find new projects. And yeah, thank you for listening to me. Thank you for chatting to me.
Yeah, you should hop in our project, and there'll be some big announcement. People will be like, "Oh my gosh, Betty's in Nifty Portal. This one's going straight to the moon." We would really love that. That would help us.
Pump it.
Oh my god. No way, guys. You have to send me the link. You have to send me the link.
Well, we really appreciate having you on. It was a joy to speak with you. We're real big supporters of Deadfellaz. I'm currently not exposed to the project, but I do plan to re-enter at a future date. And PO is still diamond handing, and I'm wishing that I had after speaking with you.
All right, cool. It was nice to talk to you. I look forward to welcoming you into our community.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Well, have a great day, Betty.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Deadfellaz on OpenSea. Very cool project. Make sure you follow Betty on Twitter at Betty_NFT. And yeah, check out Deadfellaz.
And also, if you enjoyed this type of content, hit that like button, smash the subscribe. We appreciate having you here.
Yeah, I mean, look, don't even press the like button for me or for Nick. Like, who cares about us, right? But press the like button for Betty, right? You're not going to do it for Betty, or like the subscribe button for Betty. Like, come on now. Come on.
All right.
See you guys.